I've spent thousands of hours hunting down the most insane roads and bridges humanity has ever dared to drive across. Right now, look down at your tires. They're going head-to-head with death, every single rotation. These are journeys with no room for hesitation, where the abyss waits, ready to swallow every mistake into permanent darkness. Hidden corners of the world, where people gamble their lives, every second, just to carve a path through the brutality of nature. Out here, there is no rescue script. Just you, the weight of fear tightening in your chest, and the most impossible places on Earth. Right now, step into the world's most dangerous turns with Hazard Atlas. We start here. 99 turns cut into the mountain. Tianmen Mountain, China. A road carved into the mountainside so tightly there is no room for error. 99 hairpin turns. 11 kilometers compressing a vertical rise of 1,100 meters. With this level of gradient, elevation, and turn density, this is one of the roads that pushes every technical limit to the extreme. We are sitting with Mr. Lee, a man who has spent half his life wrestling the wheel along this cliffside. He doesn't believe in brakes. He says, here, brakes are just an illusion. Gravity doesn't pull you down. It waits for you to make a mistake. And the shifting pressure makes your ears sting after every turn. Turn 88. Just a fraction off rhythm, and the vehicle loses control, turning into a block of steel, plunging straight into the abyss. One mistake here. There is no second chance. Never trust your eyes. Drive with your spine. And trust the roar of the engine. If precision defines survival here, then the next road removes even that illusion. Los Caracoles, Chile. The asphalt snail of the Andes. 29 steep hairpin turns with not a single meter of guardrail. Look at the 40-ton truck ahead. Its rear wheels are literally hanging in mid-air. A 5-centimeter error will send you into a 3,000-meter drop. In winter, black ice hidden beneath the surface turns your vehicle into a free-sliding block of metal. Safety is a luxury the Andes never provide. Here, you are not driving. You are negotiating with death. And if this solid terrain is a battle, then the fragile ropes and violent ocean winds ahead will test your soul. And if the Andes test your control, this road strips away everything you can rely on. The D915 Bayburt Road. Most transport experts agree this is the new deadliest road in the world. Built by the Russian army in 1916, no guardrails, no shoulders. It is like a staircase with no walls, rising straight into the clouds. Look in your rearview mirror. You will see nothing but fog and the void. 29 hairpin turns 29 negotiations with death. A single millimeter of tire misalignment on loose gravel, and the vehicle becomes a block of metal in free fall. It is like balancing on a rusted rope made of asphalt. Stay tight against the mountainside and pray no vehicle is coming the other way. Here, yielding is the only law. The line between life and death has never been thinner. And if this dust is still not cold enough, ahead lies a 2,000-kilometer graveyard waiting for us in eternal ice. Because some roads don't just challenge your skill, they erase the margin for error completely. North Yungas Road in Bolivia looks less like a highway and more like a scar carved into the cliff. I sit inside a vehicle climbing the slope. On the left, cold, wet rock. On the right, nothing but air. The drop below disappears into jungle. The road is barely wider than the vehicle itself. For decades, this road was known by a simple name: the Death Road. A blind curve appears. A truck is coming down. There is barely space for two vehicles to pass.
That is going.
One wheel hangs close to the edge. Lean a little too far, and gravity finishes the argument. Diego, the driver, keeps his eyes forward. Up here, he says quietly, you drive by memory, not by sight. Survival tip here is simple. Stay close to the rock wall. Drive slowly. And always honk before blind corners. On roads like this, sound can save lives. Roads like these were never built to impress anyone. They were built because isolation was worse than danger. But cliffs are only part of the story. Some roads survive on nothing but fragile ground. Fairy Meadows Road in northern Pakistan is one of them. A thin strip of dirt clinging to the mountain like a dusty thread. I sit inside a jeep climbing the slope. On one side, rough stone. On the other, open air yawning like the mouth of a canyon. The road is barely wide enough for the vehicle, and there are no guardrails, no painted lines. Most researchers believe this road was opened to reach the alpine meadows beneath Nanga Parbat. But calling it a road is generous. One wrong turn of the wheel, and the vehicle disappears from the mountainside. Raman, our driver, speaks quietly without looking down. Don't look at the valley, he says. Look where the wheels must go. Survival tip here is positioning. Keep your wheels close to the mountain, never the edge. And if you see loose rock, stop. Mountains often warn before they fall. From above, the road looks like a trembling line drawn across a giant stone wall. And when the road begins to climb, the danger doesn't disappear. It changes. The Karakoram Highway runs through one of the highest mountain regions on Earth. Standing here, breathing feels heavier. The air is dry and cold. Most researchers believe this road was built to connect Pakistan and China across the Karakoram Range. But the terrain here does not stay still. Entire mountain slopes slowly crumble. Landslides can bury sections of the highway within minutes. The road below me looks thin, like a rope stretched across the valley floor. Ali, a long-distance driver, taps his tires thoughtfully. At this altitude, he says, you don't just drive a vehicle. You take care of it like a friend. Survival tip here begins before the drive. Check brakes carefully before climbing. Carry extra fuel, and avoid driving at night. Roads like this do more than connect countries. They connect people with the patience of nature. because at extreme altitude, even the shape of the road becomes a weapon. Stelvio Pass in Italy looks like a giant spring stretched across the mountainside. The road twists upward again and again, like a steel snake climbing toward the sky. From here, the turns stack below, like stone steps leading into the clouds. Most researchers believe the road was built in the 19th century to connect valleys across the Alps. But each curve is so tight that every maneuver feels precise. Luca, a local cyclist, stops beside the guardrail. "Don't fight the climb," he says. "Ride with its rhythm." Survival tip here is control. Slow down before entering curves. Use low gear on descents. And keep distance between vehicles. Because on roads like these, inertia is the silent enemy. But not every dangerous road exists for the driver. Some exist for something far bigger. Kolyma Highway, Russia. Built to move labor and resources across Siberia. Without it, the region disconnects. Lena Highway, seasonal access to entire settlements. When the surface collapses, isolation returns. These roads are not engineering mistakes. They are calculated risks. Because not building them would cost even more. Where necessity outweighs safety. In Alaska, distance is not a metaphor. It is measured in hundreds of kilometers of emptiness. The Dalton Highway exists for one reason: oil must move. The road stretches for approximately 660 kilometers. Through permafrost, snow, and isolation. Without it, supply lines collapse. And isolation becomes more dangerous than ice. And when terrain blocks movement, roads stop being infrastructure. They become control. The Sichuan Tibet Highway was built to secure connection across the plateau. It stretches for more than 2,000 kilometers. Landslides and rockfall are routine. But the road remains operational. Because territory without access is territory without control. Further west, Zoji connects the Kashmir Valley to Ladakh. At elevations above 3,500 meters, weather closes the pass for months each year. Yet, supply lines must continue. Food, fuel, reinforcement. The alternative is strategic vulnerability. When mountains block movement, infrastructure becomes policy, and necessity outweighs safety. But even control has limits. And beyond that, the road becomes a gamble again. Skipper's Canyon Road was built during the gold rush. It was never widened for comfort. It was built to extract value from the land. Gold demanded access, and access demanded compromise. When communities depend on a single route, delay becomes risk, and necessity outweighs safety. Some roads are widened. Some are reinforced. And some are carved directly through stone. Guoliang Tunnel in central China stretches for approximately 1,200 meters. It is roughly 4 meters wide and cut into a vertical cliff face. Before the tunnel, the village was accessible only by a steep mountain path. Isolation limited movement. Movement limited survival. The tunnel was carved by local residents, not because it was efficient, but because there was no viable alternative. A safer road would have required resources the village did not possess. So the mountain was negotiated. Not for comfort, for access, where necessity outweighs safety. Not every road is built for commerce. Some are built for deterrence. The Transfăgărășan was constructed in the 1970s. Its purpose was strategic mobility across the Carpathian Mountains. Stretching for approximately 90 kilometers. Climbing to altitudes above 2,000 meters. The design was not optimized for comfort. It was optimized for movement under pressure. After the invasion of Czechoslovakia, Romania sought internal mobility across its mountain barrier. The mountains were an obstacle. Infrastructure became response. The road reduced isolation between regions. But it did not eliminate exposure. Military necessity reshaped the landscape. Because in certain moments, strategic vulnerability costs more than risk. And necessity outweighs safety. Because when nature refuses a path, humans don't stop. They carve one anyway. Chapman's Peak Drive spans approximately 9 kilometers of exposed rock face. Rockfall mitigation systems reduce risk. They do not remove it. Closing the road permanently would isolate coastal communities and trade flow. Maintaining it requires constant monitoring and investment. The decision is ongoing. Reduce the danger enough to function. Accept the remaining exposure. Where necessity outweighs safety. Not every compromise is carved into stone. Some are measured in hours. Passage du Gois connects the mainland of France to the island of Noirmoutier. It extends for approximately 4 kilometers across tidal flats. Twice each day, the Atlantic reclaims it. The margin is not distance. It is timing. Rescue towers stand for those who miscalculate. Building a permanent bridge would require far greater investment. So the decision remains temporary access. Accept daily interruption. Accept calculated exposure, because connection still matters. Even when safety cannot be permanent, this is the final trade. When building something permanent costs too much, time becomes the compromise. Where necessity outweighs safety. And when timing fails, the road turns against you instantly. We are climbing Rohtang Pass in the Indian Himalayas. The name Rohtang means pile of corpses. Not poetry. A warning. Here, snow turns to mud without asking. Avalanches sweep across blind curves. Asphalt dissolves under melting ice. A bus driver once trusted traction for 1 second too long. Not speeding, not careless. The mountain corrected him. On Rohtang Pass, survival is about timing. Cross early. Never stop on a curve. And when weather turns, turn back. Kolyma Highway hides its dead beneath the road. Rohtang Pass leaves them scattered along it. Different continents. Same truth. Some roads are not built to take you forward. They are built to remember who didn't return. Thousands of kilometers south, the stone opens again. This time, it's called Ma Pai Leng Pass in northern Vietnam. There is no tunnel here. No roof. Just air. The road clings to the cliff like a scar that refused to heal. Built by young volunteers who hung from ropes and drove iron into rock. Wind rushes upward from the gorge. It pulls at your breath, at your balance. A local rider once told us, the mountain doesn't forgive hesitation. If you stop too long, fear catches up. Here, danger is exposure. Loose gravel. Sharp turns. Fog that erases distance. Survival is about posture. Low gear. Eyes forward. And never lean toward the void. Guoliang Tunnel Road breaks the mountain from within. Leng Pass scars it from the outside. Different countries, same impulse. When nature refuses a path, humans carve one anyway. Ahead, stone gives way to water, and the road will no longer fight back. It will disappear. Water doesn't chase you. It waits. We're driving the Atlantic Ocean Road in Norway. The wind hits first. Salt on the lips, cold needles on the skin. The road rises and falls like a spine. Most days it's calm. Then a storm arrives. Waves lift, and the sea reaches across the asphalt. 1 second of hydroplaning here isn't a slide. It's a launch. Cars have been picked up, the way toys are lifted from a bath. A coastal engineer once told us the road was designed to bend, not resist. Survival advice is blunt. Slow before the bridge. Never brake mid-curve. And if waves begin to crest, turn around. Because water doesn't negotiate. Because sometimes the danger isn't the road itself. It's everything around it. Trollstigen, Norway, the Devil's Ladder. Look at this thin ribbon of asphalt sandwiched between a sheer cliff and an 800-meter abyss. The wind here does not blow. It slaps the cabin glass. Your lungs tighten from the sudden pressure change. The acrid smell of burning brakes floods your nostrils. That is the scent of metals screaming from overload. Why every spring must the Norwegian government send scan teams just to look for gouges as deep as 1/2 meter on the ancient granite? Modern machinery cannot do that. The truth is, this mountain range is actually breathing. It shifts an average of 5 millimeters every year due to the shrinkage of permafrost. The road beneath your feet does not stand still. It is drifting. It is looking for a way to hurl you into the abyss. I am sitting in the cabin. My hands grip the steering wheel so hard my knuckles are bone white. Blood almost stops circulating. Your eyes must scan constantly. On one side is a rock wall jutting out, waiting to crush the roof. On the other, nothingness. In 1930, workers like Olav stood here with dynamite and pickaxes. No hydraulic excavators. They had to chain themselves to sharp cliffs to keep from being blown away like dry leaves. Olav called this the ladder to heaven. But in reality, it is a trap. 11 hairpin turns. A 9% grade. Just one tire slip on green moss, and gravity will finish you in less than 4 seconds. Do you see those scattered rocks by the roadside? Those are gifts from the cliffs after every rain. A single small pebble can deflect your tire and turn you into a heap of scrap metal at the bottom of the canyon. Survival tip from veteran drivers: never trust your foot brakes. Let the engine roar in its lowest gear to restrain your steel monster. And absolutely never look down. The pressure here is not in your hands, it is in your will. Trollstigen is not just a road. It is an extreme psychological test. 1 10-centimeter deviation and everything ends. And after everything we've seen, the final battle isn't the mountain. It's your mind. Not far away is Furka Pass, 2,429 meters. Look at that Belvedere Hotel. It sits right on the edge, like a silent witness to decades of catastrophic accidents. Why would anyone choose to build an icon at the most dangerous spot? Driving Furka is a mental battle with solitude. No guardrails in many sections. just you and the grey streaks of clouds. In 1964, James Bond chased here, but in reality, no special effects can save you if your tires slip off the slick stone. Survival tip: keep an eye on the orphan rocks along the road. They are the only barrier between you and death. Furka is proof that humans are willing to bet everything just for a view from heaven. Because danger doesn't always stay in one form. Sometimes it changes within minutes. Hai Van Pass, Vietnam. Why did kings in the 15th century call this the most colossal gate under heaven, while modern drivers consider it a ribbon of souls? I am in a cabin drenched in mist. The smell of hot brake pads mixed with the saltiness of the East Sea floods through the door cracks. Here, you can start in the scorching sun of Da Nang, and just 5 minutes later, you fall into a thick wall of clouds in Hue, where visibility is less than 2 meters. Hai Van is not just a geographic boundary, it is a brutal climatic boundary. My eyes strain to see through the fog. The U-shaped turns here are called elbow curves. When an oversized cargo truck emerges from the mist in the opposite direction, your tires are only 5 centimeters from the cliff edge. A tip from the old drivers: do not look at the sea, look at the convex mirrors. If you see headlight glimmers in the fog, stop completely. At Hai Van, every turn has a story, and not every story has a happy ending. The philosophy here is clear. The road does not just connect two lands. It is a scar, marking the resilience of a people against the harshness of nature. And when everything else disappears, no guardrails, no structure, no certainty, what remains is just you and the terrain. In Namibia, patience looks different. Van Zil's Pass isn't really a road. It's a suggestion. Stone piled on stone, no markings, no guarantees. A local guide once told us, "You don't conquer this pass. You ask it to let you through." Survival is honesty. Walk the line before you drive it. Lower pressure. Commit once. And if the angle feels wrong, it is. Some places were never meant to be crossed. And yet, we crossed them anyway. Not because it was safe, but because it was necessary. If this journey made you see the world differently, stay with Hazard Atlas. There are still impossible places out there, and we're just getting started.